Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. I'm Olakunle Kasumo and it's great to be with you on the show once again. We're very happy with all the feedback we get from you. Please keep them coming. Use any of our social media platforms. We're grateful. We love to hear from you. We love to get your questions. We love to get your comments, your feedback. They help us to improve on this show. So please keep them coming. Now, we've got a show on our hands today. Our special guest author today is Seyi Amao. Seyi is a fascinating young woman who has been bold enough to tell her personal experience, to share her personal experience in her book. Now, this is not a memoir. This is a novel, but it's a novel based on, to a very large extent, based on her own personal story, and it's really fascinating. Now, I never heard of PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, that's PCOS, until I read this book. Now, with PCOS, a woman cannot have children, or the chances of having children is very, very low. Well, you get to hear more of that as we dive into this interview, but this is a fascinating story. Now, one of the things that novelists do for us, whether they are conscious of it or not, whether they intend to or not, is they also help us to preserve important stories. For example, look at what is going on in the northeastern part of Nigeria, where you have Boko Haram and you've got all this, the war going on in the northeastern part of Nigeria, Sambisa forests and the rest of them. One of the things that she has done in this novel is to capture all that, because two of the protagonists in this novel are army officers in Nigerian army, officers in the Nigerian army who fought in the Sambisa forest. And she was able to capture that whole experience, describe Sambisa forest, describe what the military are going through over there, describe the perspective of the Nigerian army and of soldiers and some of the tragedies that they're experiencing there. She captured everything in this book while telling the stories of these two gentlemen. But beyond that, she also tells the story of PCOS being experienced by the primary protagonist of this book. Well, it's a very interesting read, something that once you pick up, you don't want to drop again. Now, let's get to meet Seyi Amao right now, and then after the introduction, we'll dig into the conversation that we had with her.
Seyi Amao has lived and worked across 3 continents and has over a decade of professional experience in brand development, communication, and strategy implementation. She is a fashion entrepreneur and an activist for women's reproductive health. Bolatito is her debut book, and in this touching novel, Seyi tells a story that amplifies the power of love, friendship, and the challenges of experiencing polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS.
Seyi, nice to have you on Channel's Book Club. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Great. Well done. Bolatito. Now, you do a lot of things. Daytime, like financial services person.
Yes.
And then you do voiceover, you do fashion, you do... How do you cope with all that? And then, now you're a writer.
Yes. I don't know. I think one of the funniest nicknames I've heard for myself is an octopus, like literally hands in everything.
Hands.
Yes. So.
Now, what was it like writing? My understanding is it doesn't matter what you've achieved in this world. Writing is a whole different ball game.
It's a different ball game, and I can't even claim all the credits to myself. The publishing, I worked with an independent publishing house, and they literally coached me through the process. I brought my story, we would rewrite. I mean, I thought it was going to be straightforward. I mean, this is a story that's been on my heart for like maybe over 2 years, and I was hoping that, okay, I wrote my synopsis, I had my first draft, but then there were a lot of rewrites that happened in the process, and I was like, God.
Crazy. How many drafts did you... Now, what is it like being a novelist?
I don't know. I think I'm still coming to understand what that feels like. I mean, it's great to see something you've worked so hard on, be birthed, and then different people kind of come back with their own perspectives on the story you wrote. I mean, I've been very intrigued by everyone's interpretation of the characters and so for me, it just feels like, okay, this is something I had to give, to a situation that I wanted to give voice to, and it's finally out there. So that's why I said I think I'm still discovering that whole process. Yes.
Tell me what it feels like. The power of a writer, of a novelist, the power to create characters, to create scenarios, to create environments. What's that like?
Okay, I don't even know where to start from. Okay, so for me as a person, I'm generally someone that enjoys character building. Even when I studied economics, and the part of economics I loved was behavioral economics. I love to see why people do what they do. My dissertation was on stock market behavior. Why do traders behave the way they do? So being a novelist, I think this is just another aspect of a passion that I realized that I love people. So I love to see different scenarios of why did they do what they did. I mean, one of my favorite tropes of people is a beautiful psychopath. This is going to, maybe I might write a story about that, because it's almost like you're seeing someone that looks so beautiful, but then his mental inner working is not okay. It's completely different. So I like to know, why did he do that? What were so whenever I'm watching stories and everything like that, I always like to get behind the character. What were the things that informed, this person that they've become? So that was one of the things I enjoyed about creating these characters.
We'll come back to your characters very soon. But Bolatito, well, when I first saw your book, I thought it was a children's book. Because it was one of the many books I got at the same time.
Yes.
So I really didn't read. I just boom, 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 boom. So I filed it at the back of my head, and I thought it was a children's book. But when I got to reading it, and I took it, and I saw a novel, I said, oh, okay. And I began to read. Fantastic. Well done. Good job you did.
Thank you so much.
Good job you did. Now, let's dig in a bit for viewers out there who don't know what you have. I mean, what's this book all about? The story. And then I will ask you later on what inspired you. But let's get the story out there without telling it all.
Yes.
Because we want people to read this, okay? So, what's the story of Bolatito?
Okay. So in general, it's just, best way I can describe it is two people going through a situation and having a chance encounter that changes their life. Bolatito is the main character of the story, and she's a woman going through self-defeat, and in the most unlikely place, she finds a path to healing. So for me, yes, you said it's true. When you see the cover, you think, oh my God, this might look like a child's. And I mean, in hindsight now, looking back, I know what I was thinking in terms of what I wanted to depict, because as you read the story and you go back to the cover, I'm kind of like that kind of person. I like to look and find clues of different things in the story. So that was what I kind of put different clues there. So a lot of people would come back to me and say, by the time they were done reading the book, they will start rubbing the cover. They just find themselves rubbing the book, So that was the feeling I wanted to get, that, the subtitle is "The Heart of a Child Brings Healing." So sometimes there are situations we're going through in life that you need to connect to that inner child to kind of find your way back to even who you are and even where you can start to build from. So Bolatito is really about a woman finding her way back. But then there are other characters as well.
Okay, I know you don't want to reveal all, but
Yes.
let me reveal a bit more
Okay.
for viewers out there. So Bolatito is a woman that was abused.
Yes.
Has a very abusive marriage. Then, through chance, she meets a 12-year-old girl called Ifunaya in a hospital. Ifunaya's mom is late.
Yes.
Ifunaya's dad is a military officer who is at the war front fighting the Boko Haram insurgency war in northern Nigeria. Am I correct so far?
Yes, perfect.
Now, so if Funaya and Bolatito develop this very rare, unusual
Friendship.
friendship, that became very, very special. And then so goes the story. And that led to Bolatito meeting the love of her life later on. But we shouldn't say more than that, should we? But it's a page turner.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
I'm very busy, so if I tell you I read a book in one day, then you know that it caught my attention. So I just kept reading and reading and reading. I didn't want to stop until, I finished. But it's, I like the way you weaved. On the one hand, I was learning about military experience in northern Nigeria. I liked that backdrop to it.
Thank you.
Because we need to learn more in this country how to use our own stories, our own experiences to tell interesting stories. Isn't that true?
Very, very true. Because it's one of the feedbacks I got is some people say, yeah, we think about the military fighting, but we don't get to think about their families. We don't get to think about what kind of sacrifice they're making, and even how does it even work when they even get to that, to the war front and that entire process. For me, I grew up in a military family, so I know what it feels like to have my dad away, and then my mom be the one, holding up the household. Even my husband too, for his own mom, had 3 sons, and she had to be the one kind of, his mother had to be the one kind of holding ground. So I remember there are days when my dad has been posted on an assignment and my mom is just praying non-stop, So
That nothing should happen to him.
that nothing should happen to him. And for me growing up, I mean, I didn't understand. I just knew, oh, daddy is special because he's doing something for the country. But, I'd have liked to have daddy home more.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
think about it, a child, you want to see your dad. There were summers that we would travel to see him. So for me, I thought that was a great story to tell. And obviously with the aspect of the Chibok girls as well, what does that even mean? Just bringing a sort of reality to the story of the women. I mean, it's fictional, but then what would that process of trying to get those girls back home mean? What were the lives that were even lost in that process?
Did your father's experience in the military play out? Because the way you described the military scenarios here,
Yeah.
the action, the military barracks, the defense headquarters, all those, that played out for you, right?
So it definitely did. And my dad actually is featured in the book because at one point, yeah, he's Rear Admiral S.A. Olukoya. At one point, you'd have noticed him in the book. He was the defense NDA, so that's in Kaduna. So he was the director of administration there. And I got to even go to Kaduna during that period. He worked with a lot of young cadets and a number of people that he even was part of, like a mentor to, have become big people. And even himself, he had a very very great career in the military. So I tapped that, and also like my husband's dad, who is a retired brigadier general. So he gave
that
more
played
of the,
out a lot.
Yes, yes.
No wonder. And then, on the other hand, the way you also told the story, I mean, the cultural angle to the story. I mean, Bolatito was in an abusive marriage because she didn't have a child. For how many years?
That was about 12 years.
12 years, she was childless.
Yeah, 12 years.
And the once loving husband that came then became crazy because his wife did not have a child. The pressure of society, the pressure of family, and all that. That was quite very emotional.
Yeah. So for me, I knew. Well, even thinking about the story, it's emotional because the aspect of Bolatito I resonate with is what was causing her infertility, which is something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. I mean, I've been diagnosed with that, so for me, it's difficult to give birth. I mean, or conceive naturally, it's difficult because of it's a hormonal disorder. And a lot of women, like maybe 1 in 10 women globally, gets this particular disorder. So I've set up a support community, and I have different women, and different women bring different stories to me. So Akin's story is even a reflection of something that even happened this year with one woman in my community. Had her husband threw her out at church, and she had no money, and he was saying, oh, she was promiscuous in university, and that's why she can conceive. He doesn't understand that it's not her fault that she has been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. It can happen to anyone where they don't even have a cure for it or know what causes it. It's a mutation, basically. Yes, there's the infertility aspect, but then there's also a chance that you can get cancer, you can get diabetes, you can get all sorts of, horrible situations if you don't take certain steps to start making your life better. But you can only take steps when you feel free to talk about these things. So yeah, so that for me was really, really crucial and what I wanted to pass on in this story.
This is what inspired this book, right?
Yes, yes.
Your personal experience of not being able to have a child after so long.
So not being able to have a child, but also because obviously when you get married, there's that expectation. And even though no one in my family is pressuring me in that sense, I think mine has been more of the health challenges. Seeing my body transform, getting facial hairs, prolonged bleeding. That for me has been my own traumatic experience, because one of the things with PCOS is that some women don't see their periods, and if you're not seeing your period, that means you're not ovulating, so what egg would get fertilized? Now for my case, I was seeing my period and still am with, sometimes seeing it every day. When I bled 6 months straight, I was just, it's imagine going out and you're not even sure if, you mess up yourself or you bleed onto a seat. So that was what I was feeling. And Bolatito herself is a creative take on the woman with the issue of blood. And I think it was just one of my Bible study moments. I was reading and I was like, okay, God, why this situation? Even why me in this situation? And it's just from reflecting and everything, that was how I started this journey of, I want to tell a story that another woman can pick up and say, this is my story, and I was able to find my hope again. Yeah, so yeah.
Well, that's just so, that's incredible, really. Sad. Well, so you took this story
Yes.
and all the other stories, experiences in your life, and you lump them up to writing this. I always ask writers, did you write this to entertain or to send out a message? So I meet writers who write to entertain.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't care about, they just write the thing, let people have fun.
I think my next book is going to be more of entertaining.
Like that.
Yeah, just
So
fun.
you wrote this to send a message
Yes.
out, actually.
Yes, I did actually.
But you also then had to entertain while doing so, because that's what made the story.
Yes, because, sorry to cut you, because I could say, okay, it's a message, but then in my message, I also want to remind people about finding joy in very difficult situations. So there has to be that fun, lighthearted part. I mean, the book is heavy. It does have heavy things, but I believe the resolution of the story in itself almost makes you feel like, it's almost like you've been holding your breath, but then it's like, okay, yes.
So do you want to tell them whether it has a happy ending or a sad ending? Or you want to leave them hanging?
It's a good resolution.
You want to leave them hanging?
I think it's a good resolution. So I'll leave you hanging.
Shay, thank you very much for joining us on Channels Book Club. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you here. Well done.
Thank you.
What a story. Really glad to have people like Shay coming out to tell their stories openly, as difficult as it is. Very moving. There are a lot of people out there who are experiencing the same, but there's no voice for them. Nobody comes out to express these things, and so they're not able to find comfort and encouragement and strength. It's amazing how she's using her own story to inspire other people. Now, up next is a book launch. We have a report on a book that is about South Africa. Remember apartheid and remember all the difficult experiences of South Africa after apartheid and also xenophobia that the country has experienced over the years. This book captures all of them, and it was recently released. Enjoy this.
Friends, family, and prominent personalities in the academia gather as a former lecturer in the United States, Professor Emeka Anyagolu, launches his latest book, Rainbow Nation.
Congratulations.
The book is a historical analysis of apartheid, an anti-apartheid struggle, post-apartheid conditions, and xenophobia in the Republic of South Africa.
In this 339-page and 16-chapter book, Professor Nagolu started with a historical context to apartheid. It soon became clear that apartheid was not a standalone policy, but was deeply rooted in the racist ideology of the early colonizers across the globe, who used any means necessary, including genocide, to dispossess the original owners of the land and deny them their humanity.
Apartheid and anti-apartheid struggles are results of widening inequalities and bad governance. This is a lesson the author says Nigerians should learn from.
Clearly, inequality compromises responsible citizenship and dense loyalty to constituted authority. This is a huge lesson for Nigeria as we deal with the many dimensions of our insecurity.
The importance of protecting intellectual property, a related issue, was also discussed.
Nigerians must continue to encourage intellectual property and protect it. That appears to be one of the difficulties we have today. Tomorrow you will see this book on the hold-up, pirated copies being sold, while the effort, the sweat, the tears that went into producing the intellectual content will be lost because our laws don't protect intellectual property.
Professor Anyagolu sheds more light on his book.
It's a very dense historical and academic piece of work. It's not really a literary work in its form of a novel or an autobiographical thing. The primary thing is to provide a couple of things. A compilation of clear, hard data about what transpired.
The author recommends the need for this history to be told to the younger generation in South Africa.
It is a very, very analytical and densely populated piece of work that informs both Nigerians and South Africans and raises questions about what needs to be done and provides some clarity. It's one of the reasons I'm hoping that the book will make its way into South Africa, particularly into their schools, because there's a lot of lack of information on the part of them and the way they think of how they acquired their current freedom and so on and so forth. The young ones, like our country, like a lot of people do not experience civil war. And the whole civil war thing is like a story. It doesn't really have any resonance for them. The same thing is happening with a lot of young South Africans who did not experience apartheid. And as far as they are concerned, only Nelson Mandela was kind of like the superhero that somehow magically made this possible. And they don't know the nitty-gritty, the forensic details about what happened. This book corrects it permanently.
Nigeria and other African countries played prominent roles in the South Africa anti-apartheid struggle. Professor Anyagolu, while underscoring the need for government to pay attention to the needs of citizens, as the lack of it gave spark to the troubles in South Africa. The author also wants the government to draw its lessons from the experience.
This is where we have to draw the curtain on the show today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. My name is Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.